Have you ever wondered how big courtroom battles are really won? We like to think it's all about cold, hard facts. But what if I told you it's often something much more human? It's about telling a story that gets inside a juror's head and connects with what they already believe. Let's dig in. So let's start with the big question right out of the gate. When jurors take their seats, we hope they're like a blank slate, totally impartial, ready to just listen to the evidence. But is that how people actually work? Is that even possible? Well, according to trial experts like Gregory Cusimano, the whole blank slate idea is pretty much a fantasy. The truth is, every single person in that jury box brings a whole lifetime of experiences, of beliefs, of hidden biases with them. And hey, that's not a flaw in the system. It's just being human. But for a trial lawyer, that's the real challenge you're up against. Okay, so if you can't just wipe away those biases, what's the game plan? You don't try to fight them. No, you work with them. And the absolute key that legal strategists figured out is to stop just presenting facts and start telling a powerful story. Here's the number one rule, something socio-trial experts like Professor Blankenship will tell you. Facts on their own are boring. They're forgettable. But you weave those same facts into a story, well, that's how our brains are wired. So the first, most important job for any lawyer is to build a trial story that's simple, has a clear moral, and is just impossible to forget. And a really effective story has a kind of recipe. First, you zero in on what the defendant did, not the plaintiff. Second, you make it crystal clear why they are responsible. And third and fourth, and this is so important, you keep it simple and give it a clear moral. A simple lesson about right and wrong that everyone can connect with. So, you've got your story. How do you make sure it actually lands? This is where the psychology comes in. Lawyers have this persuasion toolkit, and it's not about tricking people. It's about understanding the mental shortcuts that we all use every single day. First up is this idea of a schema. The best way to think about it is like a file cabinet in your brain. When you hear a word like library or birthday party, your brain doesn't start from scratch. It pulls out a file, a schema, that's already filled with all your expectations and beliefs about that thing. It's how we make sense of the world so fast. And to see just how powerful schemas are, look no further than the famous Rosenhan experiment. It's wild. Sane, healthy people got themselves admitted to psychiatric hospitals. As soon as they were labeled patient, the staff schema just took over. Normal things, like writing in a journal, were seen through that lens and noted down as compulsive writing behavior. The label, the schema, literally changed how the staff saw reality. And that experiment leads us right into the next tool, confirmation bias. We all do this. We love information that fits into the file cabinets we've already built. We just accept it. But when we get information that contradicts what we believe, we get skeptical. We question it. We challenge it. So a smart lawyer's story isn't about changing minds. It's about confirming the beliefs that are already there. And this is a big one. It's called belief perseverance. See, once an idea gets into our head, once we accept a story, it is incredibly hard to shake it. We cling to it, even if we're shown evidence that it's wrong. This is why those opening statements in a trial are so critical. The first story told often becomes the story. Look at this. It's the perfect example. The psychologist Solomon Asch showed people these two descriptions of a guy named Steve. Now look closely. They have the exact same words, just in the opposite order. But people who read the first list, which starts with positive words like intelligent, thought Steve was a pretty good guy. People who read the second list, they had a much more negative impression. That's it. That's belief perseverance. The first impression stuck. All right, the third tool in the kit is the availability bias. This one's super simple. We tend to think things are more common or more likely if we can easily remember an example of it. Whatever information is most available in our memory has a huge influence on our judgment. Let me tell you about a classic study that shows this in action. People read a story about Mr. Jones, a father killed in a car crash. The crash was caused by a teenager who was high on drugs. But the story itself was packed with details about what Mr. Jones did that day, how he left work on time for once, how he decided to take a different scenic route home, all these little choices. So after they read the story, researchers asked them to complete this sentence. If only, who do you think they focused on? The kid on drugs or Mr. Jones? Get this, a staggering 79% of people focused on Mr. Jones. They said things like, if only he hadn't taken the scenic route, or if only he'd left work late like usual. Why? Because the story was crafted to make his actions the most available information, steering the blame emotionally away from the person who was actually at fault. That's the availability bias. Okay, so you can build a story using all these psychological tools, but the real masterstroke, the most advanced move, is about framing the final decision the jury has to make. And it's all based on this powerful principle called loss aversion, discovered by Nobel Prize-winning psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. What they found is that we humans absolutely hate to lose. In fact, the pain of losing something feels about twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining that exact same thing. Here's a simple way to see it. Imagine you're given $50. In scenario A, you can choose to keep a guaranteed $30. Sounds pretty good, right? Most people take it. But in scenario B, the choice is framed as losing a guaranteed $20. Now, the outcome is identical. You still end up with $30. But because it's framed as a loss, people suddenly become much more willing to gamble to try and avoid it. The frame changes everything. So how does this play out in a courtroom? It's genius. A really sharp lawyer won't ask the jury to give their client a bunch of money. That feels like a gain, and it's less motivating. Instead, they frame it as preventing a loss. They'll say, a verdict for the defendant means you will lose the community safety standards you all rely on. See what they did? They turned the decision from giving something new into protecting something the jury already has. So in the end, you see the persuasion in the courtroom is so much more than just the facts. It's a deep understanding of human psychology, which kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about. Now that you know how it's done, does it change how you see justice? Thanks for watching.